Hello there, my sleepy citizens. Tonight, we journey into the shadowed streets of Gotham City, where mysteries lurk and the Dark Knight stands vigilant against the forces of chaos. We bring you tales of Batman, uncovering different sides of the man behind the mask. And as our journey through these stories winds down, a calm ambience of Gotham's streets will carry you throughout the night, bringing you to restful sleep without interruptions from any ads. If you enjoy these tales, please be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what story you'd like to hear next. But for now, let's get cozy and step into the world of Gotham. The rain fell in persistent sheets over Gotham Harbor, drumming against metal rooftops and collecting in dark pools along the cracked concrete. Fog horns moaned their melancholy warnings to ships navigating the treacherous waters, sounds that seemed to embody the city itself, cautionary, somber, resilient. Batman stood motionless on the edge of a shipping crane, water cascading off his cape in rivulets as he studied the sprawling warehouse below. The building had once been the primary distribution center for Dagger Industries, before the company's collapse amid corruption scandals. Now it stood as a hulking monument to Gotham's industrial decay, perfect for clandestine gatherings away from prying eyes. Except his. Through specialized binoculars, Batman tracked the movements of figures slipping into the warehouse through various entrances. The patterns were telling. Groups of 4 or 5 moving with military precision through the south entrance, Bane's mercenaries. From the east came more chaotic, sporadic arrivals, the distinctive purple suits of Joker's henchmen. The north and west entrances showed less traffic but greater caution. Two-Face and Riddler's people, respectively. "Alfred," Batman spoke quietly into his cowl's communicator. "The intelligence was correct. All 4 are converging." "Most concerning, sir," came the butler's measured response, particularly given the history between these gentlemen. The last time Mr. Dent and the Joker were in the same room, 3 people died and a city block burned, Batman finished, and Bane has outstanding grudges against all of them. While Mr. Nigma considers everyone intellectually beneath him, hardly a formula for productive negotiation. Batman's mouth tightened into a grim line as he watched another group of Joker's henchmen arrive, carrying large crates with garish grins painted on the sides. They're not here to negotiate. They're here to divide Gotham while the Falcone organization is vulnerable. The recent arrest of multiple Falcone lieutenants had created a power vacuum in Gotham's underworld. Territory, smuggling routes, protection rackets, all suddenly contested as the family's iron grip weakened. Batman had anticipated opportunistic moves from the city's rogues gallery, but not this. Not a coordinated summit among 4 of his most dangerous adversaries. "Gordon has units standing by," Batman continued, "but they're maintaining distance. If police move in too soon, we'll lose them all in the chaos. I need to get inside, understand what they're planning, and contain the situation before it spills into the streets." "And how do you propose to manage 4 supercriminals and their respective armies simultaneously?" Alfred's tone held its customary dry concern. Batman watched as lightning briefly illuminated the warehouse's vast silhouette against the night sky, by making them manage each other. With that cryptic response, he fired his grapnel gun and descended in a controlled arc toward the warehouse roof. A maintenance hatch provided access to the building's interior. Batman slipped through the opening and into the darkness beyond, emerging onto a system of catwalks that crisscrossed the warehouse's upper reaches. From this elevated vantage, the warehouse's interior spread out below him like a macabre chessboard. The main floor had been cleared to create a central meeting area with shipping containers and crates arranged in rough quadrants around it, each section now marked with the signature of its respective faction. Joker's territory was splashed with lurid purples and greens, playing cards scattered across crates. Riddler's area featured question marks spray-painted on carefully arranged containers. Two-Face's domain was literally divided, half meticulously organized, half deliberately chaotic. And Bane's section had been transformed into a makeshift fortress, crates stacked to create defensive positions. Between these territories lay a no-man's land with a single table and 4 chairs. The negotiation zone, currently empty as tensions visibly simmered among the gathered forces. Batman counted at least 60 men distributed throughout the warehouse, heavily armed, on edge, and separated into clear factions that eyed each other with barely concealed hostility. Moving silently along the catwalks, Batman positioned himself directly above the central meeting area. He attached miniaturized listening devices to the metal supports, adjusting his cowl's audio receptors to filter out the ambient noise of rain and distant machinery. Minutes passed as the forces continued to gather. Then, a shift in the atmosphere, the random movements becoming more purposeful, the casual chatter dying away. Batman felt the change before he saw the cause. The principals had arrived. Two-Face emerged first from his territory, wearing his signature split suit, immaculate charcoal grey on his right, tattered and burned fabric on his left. 4 bodyguards flanked him, hands resting obviously on holstered weapons. Harvey Dent's once handsome face displayed its permanent division, the left side horribly scarred, a grotesque testament to the duality that defined him. In his hand, he casually flipped his double-headed coin, catching it with practiced precision. From the eastern section swaggered the Joker, his green hair slicked back, purple suit impeccably tailored despite the weather. Unlike Two-Face's military escort, Joker's companions projected chaotic energy, 2 henchmen in garish makeup giggling unpredictably, and a new lieutenant Batman didn't recognize, carrying what appeared to be a modified briefcase. Bane's entrance was characteristically direct. The massive figure emerged from the southern quadrant with deliberate steps that echoed through the warehouse, his respirator mask emitting the faint hiss of regulated venom flow. He wore combat fatigues rather than his usual wrestling in spread attire, a sign that this was business, not spectacle. 2 mercenaries accompanied him, their faces hidden behind tactical masks, weapons held with professional discipline. The Riddler appeared last, his entrance typically theatrical, the lights in his section momentarily dimming before a spotlight illuminated his path to the table. Edward Nygma twirled his question mark cane as he walked, the green of his suit almost black in the warehouse's dim lighting. A single assistant followed him, carrying a tablet computer and wearing an earpiece that lightly connected to the surveillance team Batman had detected earlier. As the 4 villains approached the central table, Batman activated the recording function in his cowl. Whatever happened here would be valuable intelligence, regardless of how this night ended. "Gentlemen," Two-Face began, his voice carrying easily in the tense silence, "shall we dispense with pleasantries and move directly to business?" "But Harvey," Joker's voice lilted with mock offense, "pleasantries are the only truly pleasant part of these dreary affairs. The rest is just territorial pissing." He giggled, the sound echoing unnervingly through the cavernous space. Bane lowered himself into a chair that creaked under his weight. "I did not come here for your performance, clown. The Falcone territories will be divided tonight, or blood will flow." "Always so direct," Riddler sighed, remaining standing as he leaned on his cane. "No appreciation for the elegance of negotiation." for the puzzle of competing interests finding their optimal arrangement. Puzzles, theatrics, threats. Two-Face growled. Meaningless. The coin decides. He flipped his scarred token into the air, caught it, and slapped it onto the back of his hand. After a moment's study, he nodded. We proceed. From his vantage point, Batman noted the positions of key lieutenants, exit routes, and potential civilian risk factors. The warehouse itself was isolated enough that a direct confrontation would endanger few innocent bystanders. But if this powder keg exploded into the surrounding areas... I've taken the liberty of preparing a map, Riddler announced, gesturing for his assistant to project a holographic display above the table. Gotham materialized in glowing blue lines with the former Falcone territories highlighted in red. A visual aid to our discussion. Joker leaned forward, his perpetual grin widening as he studied the projection. My. Old man Falcone did control quite the empire. All those lovely smuggling routes through the East End, the protection rackets in the theater district, the distribution networks in the Bowery. He sighed dreamily. A veritable criminal smorgasbord. The docks and shipping infrastructure are non-negotiable, Bane stated flatly. They align with my existing operations and provide necessary supply lines. Two-Face flipped his coin again. The Diamond District and Financial Center fall to me. My organization already has infrastructure in place. So provincial, Riddler scoffed. While you think in terms of physical territories, I'll take control of the digital infrastructure and information networks Falcone established. The modern criminal economy runs on data, after all. The Joker's laugh cut through the room like glass across skin. Take your shipping crates and bank vaults and computer codes. I want the people. His voice dropped to a disturbing whisper. The neighborhoods, the communities, the beating heart of Gotham's fear and potential for chaos. That's where the real fun lives. Batman could see the fundamental incompatibility of their visions unfolding. Bane's strategic military approach, Two-Face's rigid duality, Riddler's intellectual elitism, and Joker's chaotic nihilism. No stable alliance could form from such disparate philosophies. The question wasn't if this summit would collapse, but when, and how violently. Below, the negotiation continued with increasing tension. Maps were marked, territories claimed and contested, arguments growing louder. Batman noticed Bane's hand repeatedly straying to the venom control at his wrist, a sign the mercenary's notorious temper was fraying. Two-Face's coin flips had become more frequent, his decisions more erratic. Riddler tapped his cane with growing impatience, while Joker's smile had taken on the particularly dangerous edge that often preceded his worst violence. This arrangement is unacceptable, Bane finally growled, standing so abruptly his chair toppled backward. You offer scraps while claiming the prime territories for yourselves. The coin has spoken. Two-Face shrugged, though his good hand had moved to his jacket where Batman knew he kept his twin pistols. Perhaps you should accept its judgment with more grace. Oh my, Joker giggled. Is our muscle-bound friend having a temper tantrum? Did someone mess with your precious venom supply, Bane? You seem a bit... Riddler sighed theatrically. And here we witness the inevitable failure of cooperation among lesser intellects. I did warn my associates this effort was doomed from the start. The atmosphere in the warehouse had shifted from tense negotiation to imminent violence. Henchmen throughout the space had abandoned any pretense of calm, weapons now drawn and ready. Batman knew the moment for observation had passed. If he didn't act now, the situation would explode beyond control. but as he prepared to make his move, the Joker suddenly slammed his hands on the table with unexpected force. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice dropping its playful tone. "Let's stop pretending we ever intended to share anything." He straightened, adjusting his lapels with elegant menace. "We all came here with different plans for how this night ends. For instance, my plan involves a rather substantial quantity of my special toxin currently being pumped through this warehouse's ventilation system." Bane's eyes narrowed behind his mask. "And my plan involves the explosives my men placed throughout this building while you three were distracted with your territorial squabbling." "How unimaginative," Riddler scoffed. "Did none of you wonder why I chose this particular location? The entire electrical system has been modified to deliver a neural disruptive pulse of my design. Quite selective in its targets, I assure you." Two-Face merely flipped his coin one more time, studied it, and then reached into his jacket. "No more negotiation. The coin says everyone loses." Batman had heard enough. In one fluid motion, he detached a small device from his utility belt and dropped it into the center of the gathering below. It detonated on impact, not with an explosion, but with a burst of dense smoke that quickly filled the negotiation zone. Simultaneously, he fired his grapnel at a support beam and swung down in a controlled arc, cape spread wide to maximize the intimidation factor of his silhouette appearing through the smoke. He landed directly on the conference table, the impact sending the territorial maps scattering. "It's over," he announced, his voice pitched to carry throughout the warehouse. "This meeting is adjourned." For one frozen moment, all four villains stared at the caped figure that had materialized in their midst. Then, predictably, chaos erupted. "Batman!" Joker's shriek of delight cut through the momentary silence. "You weren't on the guest list, but you're always welcome at my parties." Two-Face drew his guns with lightning speed, firing twice at the Dark Knight, who was already in motion, diving from the table as the bullet splintered the wood where he'd stood a split second before. "Release the toxin now," Joker screamed to his lieutenants, all pretense of negotiation abandoned. Bane, reacting with surprising speed for his size, lunged at Batman, while simultaneously barking orders in rapid Spanish to his mercenaries. Throughout the warehouse, Bane's men moved with military precision toward predetermined positions, implementing what was clearly a well-rehearsed contingency plan. Only Riddler maintained his composure, calmly stepping back from the immediate fray and speaking quietly into a concealed microphone. Throughout his section of the warehouse, lights began to pulse in a disorienting pattern as hidden speakers emitted a high-pitched frequency designed to induce discomfort. Barton had anticipated this explosive reaction, but the simultaneous implementation of 4 separate contingency plans created a level of chaos that challenged even his preparation. Diving beneath Bane's massive swing, he fired his grapnel upward, regaining the high ground of the catwalks as gunfire erupted below. "Alfred," he spoke into his communicator while moving rapidly along the elevated passage. "Activate countermeasure protocol. Tell Gordon to move in on my signal, not before." "Already standing by, sir," came the butler's calm reply. "Might I suggest prioritizing the Joker's toxin threat? My analysis of the building schematics suggests the ventilation control room is located on the northern mezzanine." Batman was already moving in that direction, pausing briefly to survey the escalating situation below. What had started as a tense negotiation had devolved into a 4-way battle royal. Joker's men were exchanging gunfire with Two-Faces across the central area, while Bane personally led a charge toward the Riddler's section, apparently identifying the intellectual as the most immediate threat to his plans. Riddler, for his part, had triggered a series of defensive measures, electrical barriers snapping into existence between shipping containers, creating a maze that funneled Bane's charging forces into prepared kill zones. Two of Bane's men went down immediately, caught in some kind of adhesive trap that immobilized them, while delivering what appeared to be a powerful electric shock. Nigma came prepared, Batman observed grimly, using the continuing chaos as cover to make his way toward the ventilation controls. He anticipated betrayal. As did they all, I imagine, Alfred noted. Honor among thieves being particularly scarce among this group. Batman reached the northern mezzanine and found exactly what he'd expected. Two of Joker's henchmen guarding a modified ventilation control system. Canisters of green gas connected to the air intake. The men were distracted, watching the battle unfolding below, giving Batman the moment he needed. Two batarangs found their marks with precision, disarming the guards before they could react. Batman descended on them like a wraith, his movements economical and controlled. A palm strike to the first man's solar plexus, followed by an elbow to the temple that rendered him unconscious immediately. The second guard triggered an alarm before a sweep kick took his legs out from under him, sending him crashing to the floor, where a precise nerve strike ended his resistance. The ventilation system had been crudely but effectively modified. Batman quickly identified the toxin distribution mechanism and disabled it, simultaneously extracting samples for later analysis. The Joker's chemical weapons were constantly evolving. Understanding this latest variant would be crucial for developing countermeasures. Joker's toxin neutralized, he reported. Moving to... An explosion rocked the southern end of the warehouse, cutting off his transmission. Through the rising smoke, Batman could see that Bane had detonated one of his explosive charges, not to destroy the building, but to breach Riddler's defensive perimeter. The mercenaries' tactical approach was methodical, even in chaos. Batman needed to end this before the violence spread beyond the warehouse. Prioritizing threats, he determined Bane's explosives presented the most immediate danger to structural integrity. If the building collapsed, the battle would spill into the surrounding areas, endangering civilians. Moving with purpose along the catwalks, Batman traversed the length of the warehouse toward Bane's territory. Below, he caught glimpses of the unfolding chaos. Joker dancing through the battlefield with maniacal glee, apparently as content to watch his own men fall as his enemies. Riddler directing his forces with the calculated precision of a chess master. Two-Face's dual nature manifesting in strategic brilliance, undercut by self-destructive randomness. And Bane, a force of nature, smashing through obstacles with raw power, enhanced by tactical intelligence. In Bane's section, Batman located what he was searching for, a central detonator connected to a network of explosives strategically placed throughout the warehouse. Two mercenaries guarded it, their attention divided between the device and the battle. Batman struck from above, descending in a controlled drop that allowed him to take both guards simultaneously, grabbing their heads and bringing them together with carefully measured force. As they crumpled, he turned to the detonator. The device was sophisticated, military-grade, with multiple redundancies and booby traps that would trigger the explosives if tampered with incorrectly. Batman recognized the design from previous encounters with Bane's organization. Alfred, I need the disarm sequence for a Russian PK-7 detonator modified with biometric safeguards. Accessing now, sir, though I fear you have more immediate concerns. Batman sensed the attack before he heard it, the subtle displacement of air that preceded a strike. He rolled forward as Bane's massive fist connected with the spot where he'd been kneeling, the impact leaving a dent in the metal flooring. I thought I caught your scent, Batman, Bane growled, his mask amplifying the menacing quality of his voice. always interfering in matters beyond your understanding. Batman rose to a defensive stance, positioning himself between Bane and the detonator. I understand perfectly. You came to claim territory, but you brought enough explosives to level 3 city blocks. This isn't about criminal empire building. It's about destroying Gotham's infrastructure to create chaos you can exploit. Bane rolled his massive shoulders, perceptive as always. The summit was merely convenient, bringing all my rivals to one location while setting the stage for the next phase of my plans. Plans that end tonight, Batman replied, aware that their conversation was buying precious seconds for Alfred to transmit the disarm sequence. Bane laughed, a sound made hollow and mechanical by his respirator. Your confidence is admirable, if misplaced. His hand moved to the control at his wrist, increasing the flow of venom. Muscles swelled visibly as the compound entered his system. Let us see if you've improved since our last encounter. Batman knew he couldn't defeat a venom-enhanced Bane in a direct confrontation, not while also needing to disarm the explosives and contain the other 3 supercriminals. He needed to be strategic. You've miscalculated, Bane, he said, subtly shifting his weight as his cowl displayed the disarm sequence Alfred had transmitted. Your explosives are positioned to bring down support columns. If this place collapses, you'll be buried along with everyone else. A necessary risk, Bane replied, beginning to circle. One does not reshape a city without sacrifice. Batman mirrored his movements, maintaining the distance between them while working his way back toward the detonator. And your allies? Were they informed of their role as sacrificial pawns? A crash from the central area of the warehouse drew Bane's attention momentarily. Riddler's defensive system had collapsed under sustained assault from both Joker's and Two-Face's forces, who had apparently formed a temporary alliance of convenience. Batman used the distraction to make his move, not at Bane, but at the detonator. His fingers flew across the keypad, inputting the disarm sequence while simultaneously extracting a device from his utility belt. Bane realized his error too late, roaring in rage as he charged forward. Batman completed the final disarm sequence and spun to meet the assault, deploying the device directly into Bane's path. A high-intensity sonic emitter calibrated to the specific frequency that disrupted the venom delivery system. The effect was immediate. Bane staggered as his venom flow faltered, muscles spasming from the sudden chemical imbalance. It wouldn't stop him, but it would slow him down. Enough for Batman to deliver a precise strike to the respirator mask itself, cracking one of the intake valves. Your explosives are neutralized, Batman informed him, ducking under a powerful but uncoordinated swing. Gordon and the GCPD are moving in to secure the perimeter. It's finished. Bane's response was a roar of pure rage as he lunged forward, catching Batman with a glancing blow that nonetheless sent him sliding across the metal floor. The mercenary's strength, even with compromised venom flow, was still formidable. I will break you again, Bane promised, advancing deliberately. Then I will detonate the secondary charges your detective skills failed to discover. Batman processed this new information instantly. Of course, Bane would have a backup plan. The question was whether it was a bluff or a genuine threat. Either way, he couldn't take the risk. Rising to his feet, Batman fired his grapnel upward, returning to the catwalk system as Bane pursued from below. The mercenary was now moving with purpose toward the central area of the warehouse, where the battle between the other factions continued, unabated. Alfred, Bane claims to have secondary explosives. Scan for additional detonation devices. Already searching, sir. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures near the main support columns. consistent with remote detonators, military grade. Batman moved rapidly along the catwalk, tracking Bane's progress below while simultaneously mapping the locations Alfred was identifying. The pattern became clear immediately. The secondary charges were positioned to ensure maximum structural damage. If detonated, the warehouse would collapse inward, killing everyone inside and potentially triggering a chain reaction in the surrounding dock infrastructure. Below, the chaos had reached a fever pitch. Riddler had abandoned his defensive position and was now engaged in a bizarre standoff with the Joker, each man holding what appeared to be a deadman's switch. Two-Face's forces had suffered heavy casualties but maintained their position, with Harvey himself now directly participating in the firefight. One gun firing at Riddler's position, the other targeting Joker's men. Bane had reached the central area and was shouting orders to his remaining mercenaries, who began to retreat toward predetermined extraction points. Whatever he planned to do with the secondary explosives, he clearly intended his own forces to survive. Batman made his decision. The immediate priority was preventing mass casualties, which meant neutralizing the explosives and evacuating as many people as possible, including the criminals themselves. Justice would have to wait if the alternative was a massacre. Gordon, he spoke into his communicator, bypassing Alfred to contact the police commissioner directly. Move in now, full tactical response. We have multiple explosive devices and chemical agents in play. On our way, came Gordon's immediate reply. 8:02 minutes, what's your status? Complicated, Batman responded, already moving to intercept Bane. Be advised, Scarecrow toxin variant in the north section neutralized but residual risk. Electrical traps in the east quadrant. Armed hostiles throughout, 4 primary targets. Understood, Hazmat and Bomb Squad are with us. Hold tight. Batman dropped from the catwalk directly into Bane's path, capes spreading to momentarily disorient the mercenary. The police are coming. Your men will be captured. Last chance to surrender before this escalates further. Bane's laugh held genuine amusement. You still don't see it, do you, Batman? This was never about a criminal summit. This was about bringing you here, isolated, surrounded by enemies, focused on too many threats to see the trap until it closed around you. Batman's eyes narrowed behind his cowl. What are you saying? I'm saying, Bane replied, that while you were disabling my primary detonator, the secondary system was activated. 2 minutes until this entire structure is reduced to rubble, with you inside. As if to punctuate his statement, warning lights began to flash throughout the warehouse. Not police lights, but the automated alarm system suddenly reactivated. A mechanical voice echoed through hidden speakers. Structural integrity compromised. Emergency evacuation protocol initiated. 2 minutes to control demolition. The effect on the ongoing battle was immediate. The various factions broke off their engagements, henchmen scrambling toward exits in panicked confusion. Riddler was already fleeing toward a predetermined escape route, his remaining men providing covering fire. Two-Face flipped his coin one final time, glanced at the result, and barked orders for his forces to withdraw. Only Joker seemed unfazed, standing in the center of the chaos with his arms spread wide, face upturned to the catwalks where Batman confronted Bane. Now we're having fun, he cackled. The ultimate punchline approaches. Batman's mind raced through options. The explosives were already armed. Trying to disarm them all in under 2 minutes was impossible. Evacuation was the priority now. Alfred, alert Gordon, full evacuation, 1 block radius. The warehouse is going down. Sir, there appears to be a structural weakness in the northwestern corner. The demolition sequence will likely begin there and propagate diagonally. If you proceed to the southern loading bay, You should have approximately 20 additional seconds before that section collapses. Batman turned his attention back to Bane, who was now backing away, apparently content that his trap was sprung. "This isn't over," Batman warned. "On the contrary," Bane replied. "For you, it ends here." With surprising quickness, he turned and moved toward his chosen exit, his remaining men forming a protective phalanx around him. Batman had to make a choice: pursue Bane, or ensure no one remained to be killed in the impending collapse. The decision made itself. Firing his grapnel back to the catwalk, he ascended to gain a better view of the rapidly emptying warehouse. Most of the henchmen had fled, with GCPD undoubtedly apprehending many outside. Riddler was nowhere to be seen, likely escaped through one of his pre-planned routes. Two-Face and his remaining men were visible at the eastern exit, engaging with police as they emerged. But in the center of the warehouse floor, the Joker remained, arms still outstretched, face split by that eternal grin as he watched Batman above. "You can't save everyone, Bats," he called up, voice carrying easily in the now emptier space. "Tick-tock, tick-tock, save the clown or catch the bat. What'll it be?" The building gave an ominous groan as the first support beams began to buckle under pre-weakened stress points. The demolition sequence had begun. Batman swung down in a controlled arc, landing near the Joker, who made no move to escape or resist. "We're leaving, now." The Joker's grin widened impossibly. "So gallant, so predictable. While you're playing hero with me, Bane, Eddie and poor scarred Harvey are making their getaways. Doesn't that just burn you up inside?" Batman grabbed the Joker's arm and fired his grapnel toward the southern exit, the path Alfred had identified as their best chance. "Move," he ordered, leaving no room for argument, even from the Clown Prince of Crime. To his surprise, the Joker complied, skipping alongside him with bizarre cheerfulness as they hurried through the collapsing structure. Debris began to rain down around them as support columns failed in sequence, each collapse triggering the next in a carefully engineered chain reaction. "Isn't it beautiful?" Joker marveled as they ran, seemingly genuine in his appreciation of the destruction. All that planning, all those egos and schemes, reduced to falling concrete and twisted metal. Poetry in demolition. They reached the southern loading dock just as the central section of the warehouse gave way with a deafening roar. Batman pulled the Joker through the doorway and into the rainy night outside, both men tumbling forward as a blast of dust and debris erupted behind them. GCPD tactical units swarmed the area, capturing fleeing henchmen and establishing a perimeter around the collapsing structure. Searchlights cut through the rain and dust, creating surreal cones of visibility in the chaos. Batman maintained his grip on the Joker, who made a show of brushing dust from his purple suit as police officers approached cautiously, weapons trained on the infamous criminal. "Well, that was invigorating," Joker declared, seemingly unperturbed by his imminent arrest. "We should do it again sometime. Next Tuesday, perhaps? I'll bring the explosives, you bring that wonderful scowl." Batman handed the Joker over to the officers, who secured him with specialized restraints designed for high-risk prisoners. "Maximum security transport," he instructed them. "He'll try to escape within the first 10 minutes. "Oh, you know me so well," Joker sighed, batting his eyelashes as he was led away. "That's why we're perfect together, Bats. See you soon. Don't be a stranger." Commissioner Gordon approached, rainwater streaming from his trench coat as he surveyed the continuing collapse of the warehouse. "We've got 17 of them in custody so far," he reported, including Joker, but Bane, Riddler, and Two-Face all slipped away in the confusion. Batman nodded, his attention already turning to the next phase. They won't get far. This was coordinated, not just the summit but the trap. Trap? Gorgon frowned. You think they were working together to trap you? Not exactly, Batman replied, watching as firefighters began to contain the peripheral damage from the warehouse collapse. Bane claims it was his operation, but the level of coordination suggests otherwise. The four of them would never work together this smoothly without a unifying influence. Gordon's expression darkened with understanding. Someone else. Someone pulling their strings from the shadows. Batman didn't respond directly, but his silence was confirmation enough. I need access to all the prisoners you've captured tonight. Each faction knew only pieces of the larger plan. You think they'll talk? Some will, Batman said with certainty. The ones who realized they were as expendable as the building itself. A final section of the warehouse collapsed with a thunder of breaking concrete and twisting metal. In the distance, police sirens wailed as units pursued fleeing suspects through Gotham's labyrinthine dock district. The rain continued its steady rhythm, already beginning to settle the dust from the destruction. I'll coordinate a city-wide search for our 3 escapees, Gordon sighed, already anticipating the mountain of paperwork and political fallout from the night's events. Though something tells me they're already in their respective bolt holes, licking their wounds and plotting revenge. Batman's gaze remained fixed on the ruined warehouse, mind already processing patterns and connections, constructing the wider picture from fragmented evidence. This was elaborate, even for them. Too elaborate for a simple territorial dispute or an attempted trap. Meaning we're missing something. The summit, the trap, the coordinated escape routes, it's all theater, distraction. Batman turned to face Gordon fully. What's happening elsewhere in Gotham tonight? While all available GCPD resources are focused here, Gordon's eyes widened as he immediately grasped the implication. He grabbed his radio, barking urgent orders for status reports from all precincts. Batman was already moving, firing his grapnel toward a nearby rooftop. Whatever game was being played tonight, he had only seen the opening moves. The true objective remained hidden, but he would find it. Above him, the rain-heavy clouds momentarily parted, revealing a sliver of night sky where a familiar signal now shone. The bat signal, illuminated despite Gordon standing right beside him. Someone was calling Batman to another crisis, even as this one still unfolded. The night, it seemed, was far from over. In a penthouse overlooking Gotham's financial district, miles from the destruction at the docks, a figure watched multiple news feeds covering the warehouse collapse. Police lights flickered on the rain-slicked streets below, creating patterns of red and blue against the glass walls of the luxurious space. On 6 separate screens, the drama unfolded from different angles. Helicopter footage of the collapsing warehouse, GCPD establishing perimeters, the Joker being led away in restraints, firefighters battling peripheral blazes that the rain couldn't quite extinguish. Predictable, the observer murmured, sipping from a glass of aged scotch. All of them so very predictable. The figure picked up a phone, dialing a secure number from memory. After 2 rings, it connected. Phase 1 complete, the figure stated without preamble. Proceed with Phase 2. Hanging up, the observer turned to a wall safe concealed behind an original Picasso. Inside lay 4 separate folders, each labeled with the name of one of Gotham's most notorious criminals. Each contained detailed psychological profiles, weaknesses, motivations, and, most importantly, the precise strings to pull to make each dance to another's tune. The Joker's file contained a handwritten note. Craves Batman's attention above all else. Will accept capture if it serves the larger performance. Bane's dossier highlighted his tactical mind, but also his pride. His need to believe he was the architect rather than a piece on someone else's board. Riddler's profile emphasized his intellectual vanity, his compulsion to demonstrate superiority making him vulnerable to manipulation through carefully constructed puzzles, with solutions that led exactly where the manipulator wanted him to go. And Two-Face, perhaps the easiest to predict, a man divided against himself, letting chance determine his actions. One only needed to weight the coin appropriately to ensure the desired outcome. The figure closed the safe and returned to the window, watching as Gotham's emergency services continued their response to the warehouse collapse. On one screen, Batman could be seen conferring with Commissioner Gordon before disappearing into the night, undoubtedly following the signal that now shone against the low-hanging clouds. "Off you go, Dark Knight," the figure murmured. "The night is indeed young, and there are so many more distractions awaiting you." The bat signal cut through sheets of rain, its iconic silhouette distorted by the precipitation, but unmistakable against the cloud cover. Batman landed silently on the GCPD headquarters roof, immediately noting the absence of any officers, unusual for a signal activation. The roof was empty, save for a small package placed directly in the center of the spotlight's beam. Batman approached cautiously, scanning for tripwires or pressure triggers. Finding none, he examined the package without touching it. A simple cardboard box, sealed with green tape, marked with purple question marks. Riddler and Joker's signatures combined, an impossible collaboration given that Joker was currently in custody, which meant this had been placed before the warehouse confrontation, part of the larger plan that was still unfolding. Using specialized tools from his utility belt, Batman carefully opened the package, revealing a tablet computer and a single playing card, the Joker of Spades, modified to resemble Two-Face with half the face burned away. Beneath these items lay a small vial of glowing green liquid, unmistakably similar to Bane's venom compound. The tablet activated automatically once exposed to air, the screen displaying a stylized question mark that morphed into the face of Edward Nygma, the Riddler. Smiling with characteristic smugness. "Batman," the recording began, "by now you've undoubtedly survived our little gathering at the docks. Congratulations are in order, though they should perhaps be directed at us for predicting your every move with such precision." The image changed to a four-way split screen showing Riddler, Joker, Two-Face, and Bane in separate recordings. "Riddle me this," Nygma continued. "What appears to be cooperation but is actually competition? What seems like alliance but conceals betrayal? What looks like failure but achieves its true objective?" Joker's recorded image giggled. "Don't strain yourself with Eddie's brain teasers, Bats. The punchline is simple. While you were playing hero at our little demolition party, the real show was starting elsewhere." Two-Face's scarred visage appeared in close-up. 4 targets, 4 diversions, 4 separate crimes occurring while you chased shadows at the docks. The coin predicted you'd save some of us, capture others. It was right, as always. Bane's masked face filled his quadrant of the screen. "Consider this a demonstration of what happens when your enemies truly coordinate, Batman. Tonight was merely a test, a measure of response times, predictable behaviors, prioritization patterns, data to be analyzed and exploited in the future." The screen returned to Riddler alone. Now for the real riddle. Which of us is telling the truth about tonight's events? Are there really crimes in progress elsewhere? Is this merely psychological warfare? Perhaps a combination of truth and misdirection? The recording froze on Riddler's smirking face before the tablet screen went black, replaced by a timer counting down from 30 minutes. Batman immediately activated his communicator. Alfred, I need a status report on all high-value targets and secure locations in Gotham. Focus on anything connected to these 4 financial institutions, chemical storage, weapons caches, data centers. Already compiling, sir, Alfred replied, the sound of rapid typing audible in the background. Though preliminary reports are concerning. There's been a security breach at Gotham First National, a break-in at SSTR Labs Chemical Division, unusual activity at the cybersecurity firm handling Wayne Enterprises' data encryption, and what appears to be an ongoing hostage situation at Blackgate Prison's administrative wing. Batman's jaw tightened. 4 simultaneous high-profile crimes, each bearing the hallmark of one of the 4 supercriminals, while they themselves had been visible at the warehouse, establishing perfect alibis. They've recruited specialized teams, he realized, trained them in their methodologies, perhaps even shared techniques across teams, creating a network of proxy agents who can execute their signature crimes while they themselves appear elsewhere, Alfred concluded. Most troubling, Batman studied the countdown on the tablet. This is more than proxies, Alfred. The level of coordination, the shared intelligence. They're being manipulated by someone else. Someone who understands all 4 of them well enough to predict and direct their actions. A puppet master, as it were. Any theories as to who possesses both the influence and the psychological insight to manage such volatile personalities? Batman was already moving, firing his grapnel toward the nearest rooftop. Several, none good. I need to prioritize these 4 incidents based on immediate threat level. The Blackgate situation would seem most urgent in terms of potential casualties, Alfred suggested. Preliminary reports indicate administrative staff are being held by individuals wearing Two-Face-inspired masks, demanding the release of certain prisoners. Dispatch coordinates to the Batwing, Batman ordered, already calculating intercept trajectories, and continue monitoring the other situations. If this is a coordinated campaign, the threats will be timed to stretch emergency resources to breaking point. The Blackgate hostage situation resolved with clinical efficiency once Batman penetrated the administrative wing through an overlooked maintenance shaft. The perpetrators' mercenaries wearing crude Two-Face-inspired masks had clearly expected to maintain their position for hours, not minutes. Their objective appeared to be accessing the prison's central database, specifically the files on certain high-security inmates. With the hostages secured and the mercenaries subdued, Batman extracted what information he could from their leader, a former military contractor with no direct connection to Two-Face, but who had received payment and detailed instructions through anonymous channels. Similar patterns emerged at the other crime scenes as Batman systematically addressed each over the next 3 hours. At STR Labs, a team employing Bane's tactics had breached the chemical division, but withdrawn upon securing only a small sample of an experimental compound designed to enhance neural efficiency. At Gotham First National, thieves using Joker's signature theatrical methods had created an elaborate distraction, but actually accessed only safe deposit box 247 registered to a shell corporation with obscured ownership. And the cyber attack bearing Riddler's hallmarks had probed specific sections of Wayne Enterprises' secure servers, focusing on biometric security protocols rather than the valuable intellectual property they protected. By dawn, all 4 incidents had been contained, but Batman was left with more questions than answers. Each crime had been executed with precision by teams who understood the methodologies of Gotham's infamous rogues, but had no direct connection to them. Each had targeted very specific items or information, rather than maximizing potential gain, and each team had been prepared to withdraw or surrender once their objectives were secured, suggesting the operations themselves were more important than the individual outcomes. The tablet Batman had recovered from the GCPD rooftop continued its countdown, now showing less than 2 hours remaining. Whatever it was counting toward remained unclear, but its presence in the overall scheme suggested it was significant. "A most perplexing night, sir," Alfred commented as Batman analyzed the chemical sample recovered from one of the mercenaries, identical to the vial found with the tablet. 4 major criminals, 4 proxy teams, 4 distinct targets, yet all seemingly connected to a unified purpose we've yet to discern. Batman studied the chemical composition displayed on the Batcomputer's main screen. The sample is a derivative of Bane's venom, modified with compounds similar to Scarecrow's fear toxin and trace elements I haven't fully identified yet. It's designed to affect the amygdala, the brain's fear center, combined with the data breach attempts focusing on biometric security and neural patterns. Someone is developing a way to weaponize fear responses, Batman concluded, not through hallucinations like Scarecrow's toxin, but by amplifying the brain's natural fear response to specific stimuli. Alfred's voice carried his concern clearly. A concerning development, particularly in light of the mysterious countdown still in progress. Batman turned his attention to the tablet, which now showed 1:47:23 and counting. The timing is deliberate. Dawn plus 2 hours places it at approximately 8 a.m. when Gotham's business district will be at peak morning activity. You believe an attack is planned? No, Batman replied after a moment's consideration. This has been too elaborate for a simple attack. The warehouse, the 4 coordinated crimes, the specific targets, all gathering pieces of a larger puzzle. He studied the countdown. This isn't leading to an attack, it's leading to a revelation. Of what nature? That's what I need to determine before the countdown ends. Batman began synthesizing the disparate elements they had uncovered throughout the night. The modified venom compound targeting fear responses, the prison database access focusing on psychological profiles of inmates, the safe deposit box containing what GCPD had preliminarily identified as specialized electronic components, the probe of Wayne Enterprises' biometric security focusing on neural pattern recognition. A picture was forming, fragmented but increasingly clear. Someone was developing technology to identify, target, and manipulate fear responses on an individual level. Technology that could potentially bypass traditional security by recognizing and exploiting the unique neural patterns of specific individuals. Alfred, check recent transportation records for any movement of specialized medical imaging equipment, particularly fMRI machines or neural mapping technology. Searching now, sir. A brief pause. There was a shipment 3 weeks ago to a medical research facility in the Diamond District, registered to a Dr. Simon Harm, a neuropsychiatrist formerly associated with Arkham Asylum. Batman's eyes narrowed. Dr. Harm was dismissed from Arkham 2 years ago for conducting unauthorized fear response experiments on patients, particularly those with extreme phobias or trauma histories. The very sort one might find in abundance among Arkham's notorious inmates, Alfred observed, including perhaps 4 specific individuals who would have been extensively studied during their various incarcerations. The connection solidified in Batman's mind. He's using what he learned about their fear responses, their psychological triggers. That's how he's controlling them, not through bribes or threats, but through precisely targeted psychological manipulation. A puppet master who knows exactly which strings to pull, Alfred concluded grimly. And now he appears to be commercializing his research. Batman was already moving toward the Batmobile. The countdown is leading to a demonstration, proof of concept for potential buyers. He's going to publicly demonstrate how effectively he can manipulate Gotham's most dangerous criminals. With what purpose in mind? Control of the criminal underworld would be just the beginning, Batman responded as the vehicle roared to life. A technology that can identify and exploit individual fear responses could be weaponized for everything from corporate espionage to political control. The Batmobile accelerated through the cave's hidden exit, emerging onto the private road leading from Wayne Manor toward Gotham proper. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving the city washed clean in the early morning light. Deceptively peaceful given the machinations unfolding within its boundaries. The medical research facility, Batman instructed. Send coordinates. As the Batmobile sped toward the Diamond District, Batman considered the 4 criminals who had been manipulated into creating the night's elaborate distraction. Each brilliant in their own way, each dangerous beyond measure, yet each reduced to pieces on someone else's board, because Dr. Harm understood precisely which psychological buttons to push. The tablet's countdown continued its inexorable progress. 1:04:17 remaining. The Gotham Journal of New Psychiatric Research occupied the top 3 floors of a sleek modern building in the heart of the Diamond District. Batman accessed the building through a maintenance entrance, bypassing standard security with practiced efficiency. The early hour meant minimal staff presence, mostly security and overnight research assistants, monitoring long-term experiments. The top floor was secured with sophisticated measures, biometric scanners, motion detectors, and neural pattern recognition technology similar to what had been targeted in the Wayne Enterprises probe. Batman bypassed these systems methodically, using specialized equipment designed precisely for such security measures. The facility was state-of-the-art, a blend of medical research lab and technology development center. Advanced imaging equipment dominated one section, while another featured what appeared to be prototype devices incorporating the chemical compound Batman had analyzed earlier. A third area contained multiple screens displaying psychological profiles, brain scans, and behavioral prediction models for dozens of individuals, including prominent Gotham citizens, business leaders, and politicians. And at the center of it all, a circular room with 4 separate chambers arranged around a central control station. Each chamber contains specialized equipment calibrated to the psychological profile of a specific individual. Names were clearly labeled: J. Kerr, E. Nigma, H. Dent, and D. Dorrance, the legal names of Joker, Riddler, Two-Face, and Bane. "Most impressive, Detective," came a voice from behind him, "though I confess I expected you approximately 15 minutes ago." Batman turned to face a slender man in his 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with the clinical detachment of a scientist observing an experiment. Dr. Simon Harm showed no fear at the Dark Knight's presence, only intellectual curiosity. "Your night has been rather demanding," Harm continued conversationally. "The warehouse confrontation, the hostage situation at Blackgate, the chemical theft, the financial institution breach, the cyber attack, all precisely calibrated to map your response patterns, decision-making processes, and prioritization hierarchies under stress. While you demonstrated your control over 4 of Gotham's most dangerous criminals," Batman responded, carefully positioning himself to observe both Harm and the surrounding lab. Using their psychological profiles, to manipulate them into creating elaborate distractions. Harm's smile was small but satisfied. They weren't being manipulated. They were participating in a mutually beneficial arrangement. I offered each exactly what they truly wanted in exchange for their cooperation in gathering data on you. The Joker wanted chaos and attention. Riddler wanted to demonstrate intellectual superiority. Two-Face wanted to balance order and chance. Bane wanted to test strategic theory against practical application. Batman's eyes narrowed. And you promised each that your technology would help them overcome their greatest fear. Me. Precisely. Harm seemed genuinely delighted by Batman's understanding. You are the common denominator in their psychological profiles, the persistent obstacle, the recurring nightmare, the unpredictable variable that disrupts their carefully constructed worldviews. The countdown on the tablet Batman carried ticked below 30 minutes. And now you're preparing to demonstrate your control to potential buyers, Batman deduced, showing how effectively you can manipulate not just criminals but anyone whose fear responses you've mapped. Harm's expression shifted to something more calculating. The criminal application is merely the proof of concept. The real value lies in subtler influences. Corporate executives making decisions that benefit specific interests. Security personnel overlooking certain activities. Politicians voting along particular lines. Not control through force, but through precisely calibrated psychological pressure applied at key decision points. Mind control. Nothing so crude, Harm corrected. Think of it as decision architecture, creating the conditions under which subjects believe they're making free choices, while actually responding to carefully designed stimuli. Batman's gaze moved to the 4 chambers surrounding the control station. And your demonstration? The countdown is leading to what, exactly? For the first time, Harm's clinical detachment slipped, revealing genuine excitement. A symphony of chaos, Detective. At precisely 8 a.m., my technology will activate specific trigger responses in all 4 of our mutual acquaintances, who have spent the night believing they were the manipulators rather than the manipulated. He gestured to the nearest monitor, which displayed a map of Gotham with 4 blinking indicators in different locations. Each has been equipped with a neural stimulator disguised as something they would willingly use. Joker's makeup, Riddler's puzzle-solving glasses, Two-Face's coin, Bane's venom delivery system. When activated, each will experience an overwhelming fear response focused on a specific target. Batman processed this information with growing concern. Their fear responses will be channeled toward what they perceive as their greatest threats. They'll attack whatever targets you've programmed. The tablet showed 022-5 and counting. Batman had heard enough. With practiced efficiency, he launched a batarang at the main power junction controlling the lab's systems. Simultaneously, he fired his grapnel at the ceiling support above Harm, using it to propel himself forward, while the momentary confusion of the power disruption distracted the scientist. But Harm was prepared for this confrontation. As the lights flickered and emergency systems engaged, he pressed a device in his pocket. Gas discharged from concealed vents throughout the lab. Not a standard incapacitating agent, but something more sophisticated. Batman's respirator would filter most airborne toxins, but the specialized compound Harm had developed was designed to penetrate such defenses. Your psychological profile suggests you believe yourself beyond fear, Batman, Harm called out, as he retreated toward a secured door at the far end of the lab. But everyone fears something. For you, it's failure. Specifically, the failure to save others. The gas was having minimal effect thanks to Batman's filtered cowl. but enough molecules were penetrating to create a slight disorientation, not debilitating, but noticeable. More concerning was the countdown, now showing 0:20, 37. Alfred, Batman activated his communicator. I need remote access to the control systems in this facility. Dr. Harm is activating neural stimulators on Joker, Riddler, Two-Face and Bane to trigger coordinated attacks across Gotham. Accessing now, sir, came the immediate response, though I'm detecting sophisticated encryption on their primary systems. Batman moved methodically through the lab, documenting the technology while simultaneously searching for the control mechanism that would halt the countdown. The 4 chambers surrounding the central station contained detailed neural maps of each criminal's brain, highlighting specific regions associated with fear response, decision-making, and impulse control. I need to modify the fear targets, redirect the stimulation away from public locations to minimize casualties. A sound strategy, sir. Though I must point out that redirecting 4 extremely dangerous individuals even away from public targets creates its own risks. Batman worked rapidly, examining the programming that defined each target location. The technical architecture was brilliant but comprehensible. Harm had designed the system with elegant simplicity beneath its complex exterior. I can't shut it down completely without the master encryption key, Batman determined, but I can alter the targeting parameters. A plan formed quickly. If he couldn't prevent the stimulation entirely, he could redirect it toward a controlled environment, specifically back toward Dr. Harm's facility itself. By modifying the geographical coordinates in the targeting system, he could bring all 4 criminals to a single location where he could contain them. As Batman implemented these changes, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Harm had remotely triggered security protocols, likely from a secondary location. Steel shutters began descending over exits, while automated defense systems activated, non-lethal, but designed to incapacitate and contain. Time is becoming a factor, sir, Alfred noted as the countdown passed 10 minutes. Batman completed the modifications to the targeting system just as security drones deployed from concealed bays in the ceiling. With practiced efficiency, he disabled them using EMP devices from his utility belt, but more would undoubtedly follow. Targeting coordinates modified, he confirmed. All 4 subjects will be directed to this facility, rather than their original targets. The countdown reached 5 minutes as Batman moved toward the exit, intent on intercepting Harm before he could implement any contingency plans. The modified targeting system would redirect the 4 criminals, but the neural stimulation itself would still occur, meaning all 4 would be in heightened fear response states when they arrived. Alert Gordon, Batman instructed as he navigated through the facility's security measures. I need GCPD ready to establish a perimeter around this building, but they are not to enter. These 4 in fear-induced states will be extremely dangerous. The countdown passed the 3-minute mark. Batman was already moving, firing his grapnel upward, regaining elevation as he surveyed the surrounding Diamond District. The sun had fully risen now, illuminating Gotham's gleaming skyscrapers against a clear blue sky, a stark contrast to the psychological warfare unfolding in their shadows. With less than a minute remaining on the countdown, Batman positioned himself on the rooftop opposite Harm's facility, ready to observe and intervene as needed. If his modifications worked as intended, the 4 criminals would converge here rather than attacking their originally designated targets across Gotham. A dangerous gathering, but one contained to a single location rather than spread throughout the city. The countdown reached 0. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, from different directions, movement. Bane's massive form approaching from the south, moving with uncharacteristic urgency. Two-Face's distinctive car screeching around a corner from the east, a flash of green as Riddler emerged from a nearby building, and the distant sound of maniacal laughter heralding Joker's approach from the north. All converging on Harm's facility, just as Batman had planned. The psychological architect had created a system to manipulate Gotham's most dangerous criminals through their fear responses, and now would face the consequences of his own creation. Batman prepared to descend into what would undoubtedly be a complex and dangerous confrontation. 4 fear-enhanced criminals, 1 manipulative scientist, and the Dark Knight, all converging in a symphony of chaos, orchestrated by unseen hands. The real puppet master, Batman suspected, was still watching from the shadows. But for now, containing the immediate threat took priority. As he launched himself toward the impending confrontation, Batman reflected on the irony. Fear had always been his ally, his tool for fighting Gotham's darkness. Now, it had been weaponized against both the city and its criminals, twisted into something insidious by those who sought to exploit rather than protect. The battle ahead would be challenging, but the war would continue, for where there were shadows in Gotham, there would always be the Bat, not manipulated by fear but transforming it into justice. As Batman stood on the rooftop watching the chaos unfold at Dr. Harm's facility, his communicator activated with Alfred's measured voice. "Sir, I hesitate to add to your already considerable burden, but we have a situation developing at Gotham University's cryogenics laboratory." Batman's eyes narrowed beneath his cowl. With Gordon's forces establishing a perimeter around Harm's facility, the immediate threat of the 4 manipulated criminals was contained, at least temporarily. What kind of situation? Thermal imaging shows a dramatic temperature drop in the building, well beyond normal parameters for even a cryogenics lab, and there have been reports of... Alfred paused, his tone shifting subtly. Unusual behavior among the research staff. Heightened paranoia, irrational fear responses. Batman immediately grasped the implication. Crane and Freeze. It would appear so, sir. An unlikely collaboration, but the evidence suggests both their signatures. The Dark Knight cast one final glance at Harm's facility, where GCPD tactical teams were now moving into position. Gordon would manage the situation competently. He understood the dangers posed by Joker, Riddler, Two-Face, and Bane, especially in their current psychologically compromised states. "I'm on my way," Batman confirmed, already plotting the most efficient route across Gotham's skyline. As he fired his grapnel toward the nearest building, Batman contemplated this unexpected development. Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow, specialized in fear toxins that induced hallucinations and panic. Victor Freeze, Mr. Freeze, was typically focused on cryogenic technology and his desperate quest to save his wife, Nora. Their methodologies and objectives rarely overlap, which made their apparent collaboration at Gotham University's cryogenics lab particularly concerning. Fear and ice, a potentially lethal combination that would require all his focus to contain. The night had been long, testing even Batman's considerable endurance and strategic capabilities. But Gotham needed her protector, and rest would have to wait. Whatever Crane and Freeze were planning, it would not end well for the innocent researchers caught in their scheme. As Batman swung between buildings, the first hints of exhaustion beginning to pull at the edges of his consciousness, he steeled himself for the confrontation to come. From one crisis to another, the endless rhythm of Gotham's defender, and so continues the night, as we follow Batman into a new nightmare of fear and frost. Gotham winters were always harsh, but never like this. Batman stood atop Wayne Tower, his cape billowing in winds that carried an unnatural chill, sharper, more penetrating than any seasonal cold. Through his cowl's enhanced vision, he surveyed the expanding pattern of darkness spreading across the city grid. One by one, neighborhoods were going dark as power stations failed, each blackout precisely timed and methodically executed. This wasn't weather, this was warfare. Alfred, Batman spoke into his cowl's comm system. I need thermal mapping of the affected zones. The temperature is dropping too rapidly for natural causes. Already compiling the data, sir, Alfred replied, his voice clear despite the howling wind. Sensors indicate the Morgan district has experienced a 17-degree temperature drop in the last hour alone. The pattern suggests deliberate targeting of the city's primary heating nodes. Batman's breath formed crystalline clouds as he processed this information, cross-action with recent criminal activities involving advanced refrigeration technology. A moment of silence then. I believe you already know where this is leading, Master Bruce. GothCorp's experimental cryogenic stabilization components were reported stolen 3 days ago. Dr. Victor Freeze's particular signature. Batman had already reached the same conclusion. Mr. Freeze had the knowledge, the motivation, and the ruthlessness to execute such a precise attack on Gotham's infrastructure. But something about the pattern troubled him. The systematic nature of the blackouts suggested a larger design, a methodology more complex than Freeze's usual direct approach. What about the Wayne Enterprises neurochemical shipment that was hijacked last week? Batman asked, already moving toward the edge of the roof. Has GCPD made any progress tracking it? None reported, Alfred confirmed, though there have been unusual admissions to Gotham General. Patients exhibiting extreme paranoia focus specifically on cold and freezing. Dr. Leslie Tompkins reports symptoms unlike anything she's encountered before. The pieces aligned with disturbing clarity. One villain targeting Gotham's physical environment, another targeting its psychological resilience. Together they could bring the city to its knees in hours. It's Crane, Batman concluded grimly, working with Freeze. As if in confirmation, emergency sirens began wailing across the city, their urgent cries carried on winds that grew colder by the minute. In the distance, an unnatural fog was rolling through the financial district, glittering with ice crystals that shouldn't have formed in Gotham's usually mild winter climate. Batman fired his grapnel toward an adjacent building. Alert Oracle. Tell her to coordinate with GCPD on evacuation protocols for the affected zones. And contact Lucius. I'm going to need specialized thermal equipment. As he swung through the rapidly cooling night air, Batman's mind was already mapping contingencies, calculating response times, identifying probable targets. A partnership between Scarecrow and Mr. Freeze represented a devastating combination. Environmental and psychological warfare layered into a single synchronized attack. Gotham was facing a long, cold night, and things would get much worse before dawn. The emergency room at Gotham General Hospital had transformed into a scene from a fever dream. Patients lined the corridors, shivering violently despite thermal blankets and heaters running at maximum capacity. Their eyes were wide with a terror that transcended physical discomfort, each person trapped in personal nightmares of freezing, dying, shattering. Dr. Leslie Tompkins met Batman at the service entrance, her usually composed features tight with concern. I've never seen anything like this, she said without preamble, leading him through the crowded hallways. They're experiencing hypothermic delusions, but their core temperatures are only slightly below normal. It's as if their minds believe they're freezing to death, regardless of their actual physical condition. Fear toxin, Batman confirmed, studying the patients as they passed, but modified to trigger specific terror responses to cold. Leslie nodded grimly. That matches our blood analysis. We found traces of Crane's usual compounds, but with significant alterations. The strange part is how it's spreading. These patients came from different parts of the city, with no common exposure site. Batman paused beside one patient, a middle-aged woman whose teeth chattered uncontrollably as she muttered about ice forming in her veins. It's temperature activated, he realized. The toxin remains dormant in the bloodstream until the body experiences a drop in temperature. The colder it gets, the more severe the hallucinations become. My God, Leslie whispered, the implications dawning. If Gotham keeps getting colder, every citizen becomes a potential victim, Batman finished, his voice hardening. And with power stations failing across the grid, that's exactly what's happening. Batman moved to a hospital computer terminal, bypassing the security measures with practiced ease. I need to see the distribution pattern of cases so far. The map that appeared confirmed his suspicion. The highest concentration of fear toxin victims directly correlated with the neighborhoods first affected by power failures. The pattern was expanding outward as more heating nodes went offline. How is it being delivered? Leslie asked, studying the map. Water supply? No. Batman enlarged the map, highlighting the affected zones. Air circulation systems, commercial building ventilation, subway tunnels, department store heating ducts, places where warm air is distributed across large areas. Which means as businesses and homes crank up their heating to combat the cold, they're circulating more of the toxin, Batman confirmed, creating a feedback loop. The colder it gets, the more heat people use, the more toxin they inhale, the worse their fear response becomes. Leslie's expression hardened with professional determination. We need an antidote, fast. I've stabilized the worst cases with sedatives, but that's only treating symptoms. I'll need blood samples from patients at different stages, Batman said, already extracting collection vials from his utility belt, and access to your lab. As Leslie arranged for the samples, Batman contacted Oracle through his cowl comm. Barbara, I need thermal imaging for the entire city grid, focusing on anomalous cold spots that don't match the power outage pattern. Already on it, Oracle replied, the sound of rapid typing accompanying her voice. I'm detecting several concentrated cold zones that shouldn't exist, including one at the Gotham Central Power Distribution Facility. The temperature there is dropping much faster than surrounding areas, despite being officially operational. That's where I'll find Freeze, Batman stated, studying the hospital's own heating systems. Still functioning, but working at maximum capacity to combat the unnatural cold. What about unusual activity at chemical facilities or pharmaceutical companies? Nothing confirmed, but there's been no communication from staff at Gotham University's advanced neurochemistry lab for the past 6 hours, and thermal imaging shows the building is completely cold, no heat signatures at all. Batman's suspicions crystallized. That's Crane. He's using the university lab to produce the toxin, then distributing it through the heating systems Freeze hasn't yet disabled. Divide and conquer? Oracle asked, understanding the implication. No choice, Batman replied grimly. The power distribution facility is the priority. If it goes down, the entire city loses heat, and we'll have a humanitarian catastrophe in hours. I need to stop Freeze first. What about Crane? Oracle pressed. Batman was already moving toward the exit, pausing only to collect the blood samples from Leslie. "I'm sending these to the Batcave. Alfred will begin analyzing them for an antidote formula. In the meantime, alert GCPD to establish a perimeter around the university, but warn them not to enter. Crane will have the entire building rigged with fear toxin dispersal devices." Outside the hospital, the temperature had dropped another 5 degrees in the short time Batman had been inside. Ice was forming on the streets, transforming familiar urban landscapes into crystalline, alien terrain. Emergency vehicles struggled for traction, their sirens creating a continuous wail across the city. Gotham was already on the edge of panic. If both Freeze's cold assault and Crane's fear toxin weren't stopped soon, that edge would crumble into chaos that would claim countless lives. Batman fired his grapnel toward a nearby rooftop, the mechanics briefly struggling against the forming ice before engaging. As he swung through air that bit at his exposed skin with unnatural ferocity, he activated the thermal lining in his suit, an addition Lucius had installed after his last encounter with Mr. Freeze, but never tested under such extreme conditions. He could only hope it would be enough for what awaited him at the power distribution facility. The Gotham Central Power Distribution Facility resembled a fortress of ice. Massive icicles hung from transmission towers, power lines sagged under the weight of frozen precipitation, and the access roads were sealed beneath sheets of black ice. Most disturbing was the unnatural silence. The usual hum of transformers and generators replaced by the brittle cracking of expanding ice. Batman approached cautiously, using thermal imaging to identify potential entry points. The main structure showed uniformly frigid temperatures, but a central section burned cold on his display, a concentrated epicenter of chill that could only be generated by Mr. Freeze's technology. Switching to structural analysis, Batman identified a maintenance tunnel leading beneath the facility, likely used for accessing the underground cable network. It represented the best chance of entering undetected. The tunnel entrance was partially obstructed by ice, but a controlled application of explosive gel created enough space for Batman to slip through. Inside, the air grew progressively colder as he advanced, his breath forming crystalline clouds that briefly illuminated the darkness before dissipating. "Alfred," Batman whispered into his comm, "what's the status on those blood samples?" "Most troubling, sir," Alfred replied, his voice tight with concern. "The compound appears to bind directly to thermoreceptors in the brain, essentially hijacking the body's temperature regulation system. As body temperature decreases, the toxin multiplies its effects exponentially. Any progress on an antidote? Preliminary work only. The molecular structure is frustratingly complex. Clearly, Dr. Crane has refined his methods significantly. It appears he's incorporated elements of Mr. Freeze's research on cryogenic preservation. This confirmed Batman's suspicion that the partnership between the two villains went beyond mere convenience. They were combining their scientific expertise, creating threats neither could accomplish alone. "Keep working on it," Batman instructed, "and have Lucius prepare the city-wide aerosol distribution system. Once we have an antidote, we'll need to deploy it across Gotham immediately." The tunnel opened into a maintenance area beneath the facility's main floor. Batman paused, listening intently. Above, he could hear the distinctive hum of Freeze's cryogenic technology, a sound unlike any conventional machinery. But there was something else. Voices, multiple voices, their words indistinct but their tone unmistakably fearful. Batman ascended through a service ladder, emerging into what had once been the facility's main control room. Now it was a winter nightmare. Control panels encased in ice, monitors cracked from rapid freezing, and staff members huddled together in a corner, their extremities showing the blue-white signs of advancing frostbite. And dominating the center of the room, Mr. Freeze stood beside a massive device that pulsed with cold blue energy. His cryosuit had been upgraded since their last encounter, the transparent helmet now integrated with more advanced life support systems, the freeze gun replaced by gauntlets that appeared to generate cold directly. "The temperature will continue to drop, Batman," Freeze announced without turning, somehow aware of Batman's presence despite the stealth of his approach. "Gotham will experience what true cold means, what isolation means, what loss means." Batman moved toward the hostages, noting their deteriorating condition. "These people need medical attention, Victor. This isn't about them, isn't it?" Freeze finally turned, his expressionless face revealing nothing through the helmet. They huddled there, fearing death from cold, yet every day they take for granted the warmth that sustains them. Just as Gotham took Nora from me, leaving me in perpetual cold. Batman continued, edging closer, analyzing Freeze's device. It appeared to be connected directly to the facility's main distribution systems, not merely freezing the building, but actively pumping supercooled material into Gotham's power and heating infrastructure. "This won't bring Nora back," Batman stated, dropping into a fighting stance. "And your partnership with Crane puts thousands of innocent lives at risk." Something shifted in Freeze's impassive expression, a flicker of what might have been confusion. "Crane? Jonathan Crane is irrelevant to my work here. This is between Gotham and me alone." Batman hesitated, processing this unexpected response. If Freeze wasn't knowingly working with Scarecrow, then their simultaneous attacks might be a manipulation, Batman realized aloud. "Someone coordinated your breakouts, pointed you both toward complementary targets." "Enough talk," Freeze declared, raising his gauntlets. The air between them instantly crystallized, forming jagged ice projectiles that launched toward Batman with lethal force. Batman dodged sideways, the ice shards embedding themselves in the wall behind him with enough force to crack concrete. He responded by throwing 3 batarangs in rapid succession, not at Freeze directly, but at the cooling tubes connecting his suit to the larger device. Freeze deflected 2 with an ice shield projected from his gauntlet, but the third found its mark, rupturing a connection point. Supercooled fluid began venting into the air, forming an instant fog that obscured both combatants. Using the cover, Batman circled toward the hostages, quickly assessing their condition. "Get to the maintenance tunnel," he instructed, pointing toward his entry point. "Follow it to the exterior access. GCPD and medical personnel are on their way." As the staff members began moving towards safety, Freeze's voice called through the fog. "Their escape changes nothing, Batman. My device is already synchronized with 14 substations across Gotham. The process cannot be reversed." Batman fired his grapnel toward the ceiling, using the elevation to spot Freeze through the dissipating fog. The villain was hunched over his device, rapidly typing commands into a frost-covered interface. "The next stage activates in 60 seconds, Freeze continued, not looking up from his work. "Gotham will experience temperatures approaching -40 degrees. Cold enough to crack stone, rupture pipes, freeze people where they stand." Batman launched himself downward, aiming for the device's main power coupling, but Freeze anticipated the move. A blast from his gauntlet created an ice barrier that Batman crashed into, momentarily stunned by the impact. "I have evolved beyond our previous encounters," Freeze stated, his tone as cold as the air around them. My technology no longer simply removes heat, it actively negates thermal energy. At the molecular level, there is no defense. Batman regained his footing, noting the timer on Freeze's device showing 40 seconds remaining. Direct confrontation wasn't working. He needed to target the system itself rather than its creator. Reaching into his utility belt, Batman extracted several small cylindrical devices, experimental thermal charges developed by Lucius, specifically to counter Freeze's technology. He rolled them across the floor, their paths seemingly random but actually precisely calculated. "Your desperation is showing, Batman," Freeze observed, watching the devices come to rest at apparently harmless distances from his equipment. "Whatever those are, they cannot generate enough heat to counteract my work." "They don't need to generate heat," Batman replied, pressing a detonator. "They just need to disrupt your molecular field." The charges activated simultaneously, each emitting not an explosion but a pulsing disruption wave specifically calibrated to the frequency of Freeze's molecular manipulation technology. The effect was immediate. The steady blue glow of his device flickered, power fluctuations rippling through its systems. Freeze lunged toward the control panel, trying to stabilize the failing systems. "No! The calibration is critical. If the molecular field collapses improperly..." He never finished the warning. The device emitted a high-pitched whine, then imploded in a spectacular burst of supercooled particles. The blast knocked both Batman and Freeze backward, coating everything in the vicinity with a layer of instantly formed ice. Batman was first to recover, his thermal suit protecting him from the worst effects. Freeze lay motionless several meters away, his helmet cracked, the systems of his suit fluctuating between operational and failed states. Moving quickly, Batman secured Freeze with specialized restraints designed to withstand extreme cold. Then he turned his attention to the destroyed device, confirming it was completely disabled. The immediate threat to Gotham's power grid was neutralized, but the damage already done would take hours to repair. "Alfred," Batman called through his comm, "Freeze is contained. His device has been neutralized." "What's the status on city temperatures?" "The drop has halted, sir," Alfred reported, relief evident in his voice. "Though the affected areas remain dangerously cold, emergency services are establishing warming centers in each district. But there's another concern. Hospital admissions for fear toxin exposure are continuing to rise exponentially." Batman approached Freeze, who was regaining consciousness. "Where is Crane?" he demanded. "What was your arrangement with him?" Freeze's eyes focused slowly behind his damaged helmet. "I made no arrangement with Scarecrow," he replied, his voice weakened but still emotionless. "My target was Gotham's heat. Its comfort, its warmth, nothing more." "Then how do you explain the fear toxin specifically designed to trigger hypothermic hallucinations, the timing that perfectly aligned with your attack?" Something like realization seemed to dawn in Freeze's normally impassive expression. "We were used," he stated after a moment. "Directed. Someone with knowledge of both our methods arranged for compatible but separate attacks." Batman's suspicions hardened into certainty. "Who broke you out of Arkham? Who suggested targeting the power grid specifically?" "A guard," Freeze replied, his system stabilizing enough for him to sit upright despite his restraints. "New to Arkham, he spoke of injustice, of how Gotham's warmth mocked my condition. He provided the access codes, the timing, the target." Freeze's eyes narrowed slightly. "He mentioned how fear and cold were natural companions." That was all Batman needed to hear. Someone had manipulated both Freeze and Crane, directing them toward complementary attacks without either villain realizing they were part of a coordinated assault on Gotham. Alfred, contact GCPD to secure Freeze and begin restoration of the power systems, Batman instructed, already moving toward the exit. The university lab is now the priority. If Crane doesn't realize he's being manipulated, he may still be producing the toxin there. As Batman emerged from the facility into the frozen Gotham night, Oracle's voice came through his comm. "Bruce, we have a problem. Thermal imaging shows the university lab has gone from cold to hot in the last 10 minutes. Something's burning in there." Batman accelerated his pace, firing his grapnel toward the nearest high point to begin the journey across the city. Crane is destroying evidence, or worse, releasing a concentrated dose of the toxin as a final act. Either possibility meant time was running out for Gotham's citizens already affected by the fear toxin. Without an antidote, the combination of dropping temperatures and escalating psychological terror would claim lives throughout the night. The race against time had entered its final, most desperate phase. Gotham University's advanced neurochemistry lab was engulfed in chemical flames by the time Batman arrived. Not the orange-red of conventional fire, but an eerie blue-green that cast sickly shadows across the snow-covered campus. Campus security had established a perimeter, but were wisely staying clear of the toxic smoke billowing from broken windows. Batman's cowl automatically enhanced his vision, analyzing the smoke's composition. "Alfred, the fire is consuming large quantities of the fear toxin. The combustion is creating an airborne variant that's more potent but shorter-lived than the original formula. Most concerning, sir. I've been analyzing the blood samples, and there's something unusual about this particular strain. It doesn't merely trigger fear responses. It seems designed to push the human mind towards specific fear scenarios involving cold, ice, and freezing." Batman secured his specialized rebreather designed specifically to filter Crane's toxins. Crane has always been obsessed with tailoring fears to specific phobias. This is just a more targeted approach. "Perhaps, sir, but the molecular structure suggests something more deliberate, as if it were designed to complement Mr. Freeze's attack with remarkable precision, the kind of precision that suggests shared research." Batman paused at this observation. "Shared unwillingly, perhaps. Check Arkham's visitor logs for the past 3 months. Look for any overlap in personnel who had access to both Freeze and Crane." As he prepared to enter the burning building, Batman noticed something odd about the fire pattern. It was spreading in a controlled manner, following specific pathways through the lab rather than consuming everything indiscriminately. This wasn't destruction, it was production. The fire was deliberately creating more of the airborne toxin. Batman adjusted his approach, using thermal imaging to identify the coolest entry point, a ground floor window on the building's north side. The glass was already cracked from temperature extremes, requiring minimal force to create an opening large enough to slip through. Inside, the air was thick with noxious chemicals, despite his rebreather's filtration. The lab had been transformed from an academic research facility into a nightmare production center. Every surface was covered with elaborate chemical apparatus. Bunsen burners heating compounds that bubbled and steamed, feeding their vapors into collection systems that piped them throughout the building. And moving methodically among this chemical maze was the thin, ragged figure of Dr. Jonathan Crane, no longer wearing his signature burlap mask, but a sophisticated breathing apparatus that resembled a plague doctor's beaked visage. The irony wasn't lost on Batman, a medieval symbol of disease now used to spread a modern psychological plague. "Your theatrical entrance was unnecessary, Batman," Crane spoke without turning, his voice distorted by his breathing apparatus. "I've been expecting you, though I calculated your arrival approximately 27 minutes earlier." Mr. Freeze must have proved more resilient than anticipated. Batman moved deeper into the lab, cataloging potential points of intervention in Crane's elaborate setup. This ends now, Crane. Your toxin is already affecting hundreds across Gotham. Crane continued adjusting valves on his apparatus, seemingly unconcerned by Batman's presence. Hundreds. How disappointing. By my calculations, exposure should have reached thousands by now. He glanced at a tablet displaying a map of Gotham, with spreading color-coded zones. Ah, I see the issue. The city's emergency protocols activated sooner than expected. Fascinating. Who put you up to this? Batman demanded, edging closer while avoiding direct contact with the chemical equipment. Who coordinated your efforts with Freeze? For the first time, Crane seemed genuinely surprised, his movements momentarily pausing. Coordinated? No one coordinates my work, Batman. My research is too precise, too visionary for collaboration. He resumed adjusting his equipment. Though I must admit, the timing of Freeze's attack provided an optimal environmental backdrop for my new compound. Fear responds beautifully to physical stresses. Batman analyzed Crane's response, detecting no deception, only the usual megalomania that characterized the former psychiatrist's personality. Like Freeze, Crane didn't realize he was being manipulated. You were both used, Batman stated flatly. Someone orchestrated your escapes from Arkham, pointed you toward complementary targets, knowing the combined effect would be devastating. Crane tilted his head bird-like behind his mask, an interesting hypothesis. It would explain certain conveniences in my escape. The guard who left specific chemicals within my reach, the suggestions about targeting the university's heating systems for toxin distribution. His voice took on an analytical tone, the scientist momentarily overriding the madman. The guard mentioned how fear blossoms in cold, how primal survival instincts amplify terror when warmth is threatened. The same pattern as Freeze had described, subtle manipulation by someone with intimate knowledge of both villains' methods and psychologies, someone with access to Arkham, someone who understood that the combination of environmental attack and psychological warfare would create something far more dangerous than either villain could accomplish alone. But identifying the puppet master would have to wait. Gotham needed an antidote now. Your formula, Crane, Batman demanded, moving into a direct confrontation stance. Where is it? Scarecrow's laugh rasped through his mask. In the air, Batman. In the water. In the blood of Gotham's citizens. My finest work. A toxin that hibernates until awakened by cold, then blossoms into personalized nightmares of freezing, shattering, dying alone in the ice. And the antidote? Batman pressed, knowing Crane always developed one, not from humanitarian concern, but from scientific thoroughness. Antidote? Crane's voice carried mock confusion. What makes you think I would develop an antidote for winter itself? The cold is the catalyst, Batman. As long as Gotham freezes, my toxin thrives. The only antidote would be to warm every affected citizen to precisely 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit and maintain that temperature for 12 hours. He gestured toward the window, where ice continued to form on Gotham's skyline, rather impossible under current conditions, wouldn't you say? Batman lunged forward, grabbing Crane by his lab coat and lifting him away from the chemical apparatus. You're lying. Every compound has a counteragent. Where is it? Crane didn't resist, his body limp in Batman's grasp. You misunderstand the elegance of my design, Batman. This isn't a traditional toxin with a traditional antidote. It's a symbiotic relationship with environmental conditions. Restore Gotham's heat, and you neutralize my work. Fail, and the city descends into hypothermic madness. Batman's grip tightened as he processed this information. If Crane was telling the truth, and his smug confidence suggested he was, then the antidote wasn't chemical but environmental. Gotham needed its heat restored, and quickly. "Alfred!" Batman called through his comm. "Crane confirms the toxin is temperature dependent. We need to accelerate power restoration to the affected zones." "Already coordinating with city services, sir," Alfred replied. "But even with emergency measures, full restoration will take hours. And the weather service reports a natural cold front moving in by midnight, dropping temperatures another 10 degrees. Batman's mind raced through alternatives. Evacuation wasn't feasible for an entire city. Individual treatment would take too long. They needed a way to rapidly warm thousands of affected citizens simultaneously. The Wayne Enterprise's atmospheric regulators, Batman realized aloud. The prototypes designed for weather pattern modification in drought-affected regions. An inspired thought, sir, Alfred confirmed, though they're designed to increase precipitation, not temperature. Lucius can recalibrate them, Batman decided, securing Crane with specialized restraints. 4 units positioned strategically could create localized heat pockets over the most affected neighborhoods. As Batman disabled the remaining chemical apparatus, ensuring no more toxin would be produced, Oracle's voice came through his comm. "Bruce, I think I've identified our puppet master. Arkham records show a new psychiatrist joined the staff 2 months ago, Dr. Elias Crane. He had evaluation sessions with both Freeze and Scarecrow. Run background checks," Batman instructed, dragging a now silent Crane toward the exit. "Full history, credentials, everything." "That's just it," Oracle continued, her voice tense. "There is no history. The credentials check out on the surface, but dig deeper, and Dr. Elias Crane doesn't exist before 8 months ago. And here's the clincher, he hasn't reported for work since both Freeze and Scarecrow escaped." The pieces aligned with disturbing clarity. Someone had created an elaborate false identity, infiltrated Arkham, and spent months psychologically manipulating 2 of Gotham's most dangerous criminals, preparing them for a coordinated attack without either realizing they were being directed. But why? What could anyone gain from plunging Gotham into frozen terror? Those questions would have to wait. With Crane secured and the toxin production halted, the priority now was implementing the temperature solution before more citizens succumbed to the deadly combination of cold and fear. "Have Lucius prepare the atmospheric regulators for immediate deployment," Batman instructed Alfred, "and tell Jim to establish warming centers in every possible public building, schools, libraries, shopping centers. We need to get people's core temperatures up as quickly as possible." As Batman emerged from the university building with the subdued Scarecrow, he surveyed the frozen Gotham skyline. Ice glittered on every surface, transforming the familiar urban landscape into something alien and hostile. Emergency lights pulsed in the distance as first responders struggled to address the growing crisis. The night was far from over, and somewhere in Gotham, the architect of this synchronized attack was watching, evaluating, perhaps already planning the next move in whatever game they were playing. But first, the city needed warmth. Then, and only then, could Batman turn his attention to hunting the shadow that had orchestrated this night of fear and freezing. Dawn broke over a Gotham transformed. Streets glistened with melting ice as the Wayne Enterprise's atmospheric regulators hummed from their positions atop the city's highest buildings, projecting waves of gentle heat across affected neighborhoods. Emergency workers moved from building to building, checking on residents, distributing thermal blankets and administering the supportive care that the fear toxin victims needed as their body temperatures normalized. Batman stood on the roof of the GCPD headquarters, his cape occasionally billowing in the artificially warmed breeze. Beside him, Commissioner Gordon studied a tablet, displaying real-time updates on the city's recovery efforts. The hospital's report toxin symptoms are subsiding as patients warm up, Gordon reported. Another hour of this controlled temperature increase and we should be past the crisis point. Batman nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the morning sun was beginning to burn away both natural fog and chemical residue. The toxin breaks down completely when body temperature returns to normal. No lasting physical effects, though the psychological trauma may linger for some. Gordon rubbed his eyes beneath his glasses, exhaustion evident in every movement. Freeze and Scarecrow are secured in specialized cells at GCPD headquarters. No chance of either returning to Arkham until we've completed a full security review. He hesitated before adding, "Any progress identifying this Dr. Crane character?" Oracle has traced financial transactions to a short-term apartment rental in the Diamond District, Batman replied, "but I doubt we'll find anything there except more carefully planted false leads. You think this goes deeper than just manipulating 2 inmates into a coordinated attack?" Batman turned to face Gordon directly. This was too elaborate, too precisely planned to be an isolated incident. Someone spent months studying Freeze and Crane, understanding their psychologies, identifying exactly how to motivate them toward complementary targets without either realizing they were being directed. A test run, Gordon concluded grimly, seeing how effectively they could manipulate Gotham's rogues gallery, and testing my response patterns, Batman added, observing how I prioritize threats, allocate resources, develop countermeasures. The implications hung heavily between them. Someone wasn't just targeting Gotham, they were specifically studying Batman's methods, perhaps identifying weaknesses for some future confrontation. Gordon's tablet chimed with an incoming alert. "They found something at the apartment," he reported after reading the message. "No suspect, but a single playing card left on the kitchen table." Batman's expression darkened. "Joker." Gordon shook his head. Not his style. This was a tarot card. The Tower symbolizes sudden change, upheaval, revelation. He looked up from the tablet. "Whoever this is, they're leaving breadcrumbs." Batman turned back toward the brightening horizon, where Gotham was gradually emerging from its night of terror. Not breadcrumbs, challenges, invitations to the next game. "You think they'll try again?" "I know they will," Batman stated with certainty. This was too methodical, too calculated to be a single event. They're testing boundaries, studying responses, preparing for something larger. Gordon sighed heavily. Just what Gotham needs. Someone weaponizing our existing rogues gallery. Batman's cowl cam activated with Oracle's voice. "Bruce, thermal imaging confirms all affected zones have returned to safe temperature levels. Lucius says the atmospheric regulators can be powered down in sequence now." "Understood," Batman replied. Then, to Gordon, "The immediate crisis is contained, but we need to enhance security protocols at Arkham immediately. Whoever is behind this will try to access other inmates." Gordon nodded in agreement. "I'll assign my most trusted officers to the asylum detail. No new personnel without triple verification of backgrounds." As the commissioner turned to leave, Batman's gaze returned to the city below, where citizens were cautiously emerging from emergency shelters, returning to homes and businesses that had nearly become death traps hours earlier. The crisis had been averted, but the vulnerability had been exposed. not just in Gotham's infrastructure, but in the way its greatest threats could be manipulated and directed by an unseen hand. Batman fired his grapnel toward an adjacent building, preparing to begin his own investigation into the mysterious Dr. Crane. As he swung through the warming air, his mind was already analyzing the pattern, the methodology, the precision of the attack. Someone had studied Gotham's villains with clinical detachment, understanding exactly how to deploy them for maximum effect. And that someone was still out there, watching, learning, planning the next move in a game whose rules and ultimate objective remained hidden in shadow. The night of fear and freezing had ended, but the true threat, the architect behind it, was just beginning their work, and Batman would need to unravel their identity before the next attack, which would surely come with even greater coordination, greater danger, and greater challenges for Gotham's dark night. As the morning sun finally broke fully over the horizon, Batman disappeared into the shadows of the city he had once again saved. But for how long, even he couldn't predict. The game had changed, the players were being manipulated, and somewhere, watching from the shadows, a new kind of threat waited to make their next move. Gotham's temperature was returning to normal, but the chill of what this night represented, the calculated manipulation of the city's greatest threats, would linger long after the ice had melted from its streets. And so our tale of Gotham comes to an end. Let the gentle night embrace you as you drift toward peaceful dreams, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the Dark Knight watches over his city. If you're not asleep yet, we will now play the ambience of Gotham City at night to help you fall asleep. And if you were just listening to our tales, we will see you next time. Good night and sleep well.